Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristen Harmel, Christy Woodson Harvey, and Patty Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place. Hi, everybody. It is Wednesday night, and that means it's time for Friends and Fiction. It is the happiest night of the week, and we are so happy to be here with you tonight. I'm Kristen Harmel.
I'm Christy Woodson Harvey.
I'm Patty Callahan Henry.
And I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
And this is Friends and Fiction, 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories to support independent bookstores, authors, and librarians. Tonight we'll be talking with Lisa Barr and Erika Robuck, and then our friend Rachel McMillan will join us in the after show. So let's settle in for a really fun hour. But first, I think we should tell you where we're all broadcasting from, because I think all of us have had an insane day, and I think you're going to see it reflected in the broadcast tonight. Like, I just got off the road after basically 7 to 8 hours of driving, so my words might not come out right tonight.
I think you're doing great. I am actually at my parents' house in Salisbury. I came home to see my grandparents, which is why there is still a row of my books behind me because I'm at my parents' house. I did not travel with 47 copies of my own books.
Although you should.
I should. I mean, why shouldn't you? Yeah.
Patty, where are you?
I am in Newberg, Oregon, speaking at a college tomorrow. And so I am in, as what you can tell, is an incredibly fancy hotel, not with an incredibly bad Wi-Fi. So I'm going to be a bit glitchy, but I'm so happy to be here and cannot wait to hear from Erika and Lisa and Rachel.
And I'm at my friend Beth's house in the mountains of North Carolina, doing Christmas tree research.
Well, that sounds amazing. And
really
Pat, we'll just warn you all, Patty's on a tiny bit of a delay. So if there's a pause, that is why, but she is here and that is good. So Christy, sorry, take it away.
No, that's great. So as you know, we continue to encourage you to support independent booksellers when and where you can. I was at one of my favorites in Salisbury today, South Main Book Company, one of the best. And one way to do that is to visit our own Friends and Fiction bookshop.org page, where you can find Lisa, Erika, and Rachel's books and books by the 4 of us. And
we also want to remind you that both Christy and Mary Kay have brand new books coming out in the next couple of weeks. In fact, Christy, I think it's 2 weeks and 6 days until your book comes out, and Mary Kay will be May 3rd, and they're available wherever books are sold. But if you want a hand-signed first edition of both books when they come out, plus a great little notepad with sticky notes, you can order the spring box from our friends at Independent Bookstore Oxford Exchange. You'll receive this beautiful, it's like getting a gift in the mail, this beautiful delivery of both books, and each of them signed as soon as they are released.
I got my big stash yesterday. I can't wait to sign them all for y'all.
Oh my gosh. Mine won't be here for a while yet. So friends, you know how we all savor a really good book. A good book. It's like you don't want it to end, right? Like a book, you don't want it to end. That's exactly how you'll feel about a cup of slow roasted coffee from Charleston Coffee Roasters. And that's why we are so excited to announce our next giveaway. As part of our Coffee with Friends promotion, 3 lucky Friends and Fiction members will each win their very own 3-month subscription from Charleston Coffee Roasters. Each winner of the month giveaway will receive 2 bags of smooth, slow roasted seasonal favorites from Charleston Coffee Roasters each month for 3 months. That's a prize worth $90. We'll choose 3 winners, one each in March, April, and May. Enter once to be chosen at random in any of the 3 monthly draws. And Meg will share the entry form link on the Facebook page. Meanwhile, don't wait. Shop now on the Charleston Coffee Roasters website and use the code Coffee with Friends, all lowercase, one word, for 20% off all bag coffees.
And while you're treating yourself, don't forget our other presenting sponsor, Page One Books, who also has a very nice discount for our viewers on their fun subscription service. You can use our code FRIENDS15 at their website, pageonebooks.com. That's the number 1 to get 15% off their 3, 6, or 12-month subscription plans. I know all of us gave these as gifts the last time that they were our sponsor because this is like the best gift ever. But basically, Page One, the booksellers at Page One are literary matchmakers. You fill out a survey telling them about your book preferences, and poof, like magic, a book picked just for you by a human being arrives at your door. So we hope that you'll give them a try using the code FRIENDS15 at checkout.
Well, speaking of magical books, and is there anything better, ladies? I think not. I believe it is time to welcome our guests for the evening, Lisa Barr and Erika Robuck. So let's learn a little bit about the two of them.
Lisa Barr is the award-winning author of Women on Fire, The Unbreakables, and the historical thriller Fugitive Colors. She previously worked as an editor and reporter for the Jerusalem Post, the managing editor of Today's Chicago Woman, the managing editor of Moment Magazine, and as an editor and reporter for the Chicago Sun-Times. So, wow, she has got quite the journalistic career. Lisa also served as the editor and creator of the popular parenting blog Girl Willow Warfare, a mom's guide to surviving the suburban jungle.
Lisa has been featured on Today, Good Morning America, Fox and Friends, and Australia TV. She earned her master's degree from the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University, and she lives in the Chicago area with her husband and their 3 daughters. And you have to follow her on social media because she posts the greatest pictures of all of them all the time. It's great.
Yes. They're all just as beautiful as Lisa.
Yes.
It's like a feat of nature.
Okay, and Erika Robuck is a national best-selling author of books including The Invisible Woman, Hemingway's Girl, and Call Me Zelda. She also served as a contributor to the Writer's Digest essay collection, Author in Progress, and the anthology Grand Central, Post-War Stories of Love and Reunion. She lives in Annapolis with her husband and family, which includes 3 sons and a miniature schnauzer. In 2014, she was named Annapolis's Author of the Year.
That's so cool. Orlando would never name me the author of anything. That's awesome.
I'm the poet laureate of my neighborhood, I'll have you know.
I'm just going to tell myself, I'm going to be like, I'm author of the year in Beaufort. Like, I'm just going to make it up.
Yeah.
I just made that up. I just made myself poet laureate of Avondale Estates. You could do it.
Is fantastic.
Yeah, why not?
Who's going to argue?
I recommend big titles for all of us, just like we were going to give each other awards named after each
Yeah,
other. And all.
yeah.
It's all coming together, ladies.
Yeah.
So anyhow, both Lisa and Erika had brand new books come out just last week. So how lucky are we to be talking to them tonight? We're so excited. Sean, can you bring Lisa and Erika on, please? Hi, ladies. Oh, it's so good.
Hi,
to see
ladies.
you. Welcome to Friends in Fiction. We are so glad to have you here. And big congratulations on your new books, both of which I had the chance to read early, both of which I absolutely loved, as you both know. So, Lisa, can you start us off by telling us about Woman on Fire?
Yes. First of all, thank you so much for having me. And I love being with Erika. We're Pub Day sisters, and we've been supporting each other all the way through, which has been amazing. So Woman on Fire is a gripping tale of a savvy young journalist. She's 24 years old, and she gets embroiled in a major international art scandal centered around a Nazi looted painting. And I really loved writing this book because it has, all the things I love to write and read: suspense, history, and risky journalistic pursuits, and strong, fiery women.
That is awesome. And I loved it so much. It was so good. I was reading it by the pool about, I guess, almost a year ago and just gasping aloud. And my mother-in-law kept saying, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "It's this book. It's amazing." But anyhow, Erika, can you tell us about Sisters of Night and Fog, which I'm also a big fan of?
Yes, and I also want to say hello again and thank you to all. I feel like I've known all of you for such a long time, so this is a thrill to be here and to share Pub Day with Lisa. It's been great. Sisters of Night and Fog is the true story of two remarkable women in World War II. One of them is an American teacher who grew up in Florida, married a Frenchman, and the other one is a Franco-British feisty widow and mother. And both of their deeds with the resistance do come to a staggering halt when they come together, and they're really tested in their courage and strength. But that writing this book and finding these real women superheroes has been the joy of the last 3 years of my life. So.
That's amazing. Such a great book too. I love it.
Thank
you.
Okay, I get to ask the first question, I think.
Yeah.
That's you. Yeah.
Okay, so these are both searing novels that involve World War II, but they're so very different in their execution. I love that idea that you can both be circling around similar subject matter, including, the age-old fight of good versus evil, which we're seeing playing out right now in real time.
Yeah.
But the passion and interest you both bring to the table, you result in just so wildly different stories. Could you tell us, first of all, what was the seed of the idea for each of these books? Erika, maybe you could start.
Sure. Growing up in Annapolis, it's very historic. I always feel like I'm back in time. And so when I'm around, I love the past, and it always felt sort of safe to me until I started researching World War II. But I had been writing so many books about the wives of famous authors, and I was starting to write another wife of famous author book. And an editor told me, "Could you write about a woman who's just remarkable on her own, not someone who's remarkable for being in the shadows of a man?" And I thought that was really interesting advice. And it was around that time that I read an article in the Smithsonian about a woman from Baltimore, right near where I grew up in Maryland, who had served as a spy in World War II and who had liberated mountain villages and had wanted posters and Nazis on her tail. And she scaled the Pyrenees and all on a prosthetic leg called Cuthbert. And that was Virginia Hall. So, meanwhile, I went to Target this morning. It was really when I found her, I felt like, oh my gosh, this woman could start a whole new subgenre of husband of famous women books.
Yeah.
And then when I was working with Virginia Hall and The Invisible Woman, I started finding all these women's stories. And I'm really focused on the American women because that's what I am. And that's where I found Virginia Rausch, D'Albert Lake. And so it's just one led to another. And then I had these giants of the past.
And Erika, I have to interject quickly and just say, you and I had something in common. We had a Virginia D'Albert Lake connection.
Yes. So Kristen, I had been reading, and I'm a huge fan of Kristen's, and I saw that she had read the diary and memoir of Virginia D'Albert Lake to inform the room on room. I can't pronounce it correctly.
The room on Rue Amélie. She was one of the inspirations.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't telling her story, but she was kind of the person who gave me, in my mind, the permission to write about this American woman in Paris during the war. And so it's been so interesting to talk to you about your book and then to see her story so much more fully fleshed out. And then when we met last week and talked about it in person, we were right in the shadow of her old university here in Winter Park, Florida.
And did I tell you, Kristen, what happened on the way out of the book signing?
No. Oh, you did. Yes.
Okay, well, I'll just drop one quick little mystical story. There's lots of them. And writers, you probably have many of your own. But I didn't get to go to Rollins College and visit, which is where Virginia had attended. And I was bummed because I didn't give myself the time to do it. And when I was leaving the signing, it was dark. And GPS took me some crazy way that was not the way I came in. I'm all these side streets, turn here, turn there. Finally, a light turns red. So I slammed my brakes on. There are no cars around. And I looked to the right, and there's Rollins College. And that's where Virginia went. So I felt like she was giving me that, or I could have just hit GPS wrong. But
I like the first explanation.
The first one's better.
Way better.
Yeah. Lisa, tell us about the seed of the idea that got you started for Woman on Fire.
Okay, so for me, it was twofold. I was writing this book during COVID, and I really decided I wanted to write about a young journalist because this was the most, I would say, interesting time of my life. I was a reporter in the Middle East, and I was young and before kids, and I was sort of fearless, and I would take on any story. And it was kind of before I was older and jaded and seasoned. And I decided I wanted to go back there and during COVID. And so I was looking for my story. And I know when I have my story, I get this sort of visceral feeling through my body. And I had read this article about the Munich art hoard, which was kind of it just blew up the art world. And basically, there was discovered in Munich in a rundown apartment, 1,500 major masterpieces, including Chagall and Monet, and just 1,500 worth about $1.5 billion. And it turns out that this was this was the son of Hitler's art thief,
I remember this story.
Yeah. And so I knew I had my story. And so when I began the book, no spoilers, I knew I wanted to catapult off of this very real story. And, you know, it's almost unbelievable. He had major works inside of his stove and his food cabinet, and many of the works were stolen art. And I knew I wanted to write about this and sort of wrap my characters all around this treasure trove. And in the treasure trove, Woman on Fire, which is the painting, may or may not have been in this treasure trove. And so that's where it kind of began. The young journalist and this wild story in the art world.
Sort of ripped from the headlines, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
That is awesome.
I love the idea of a piece of art finding its way back home. We talk about it a lot. I think it's really fascinating. And Erika, that you get to walk around in your own hometown and think about that. It's pretty amazing. But I want to talk about how, as writers, sometimes we can wind up on the page, even when we don't necessarily mean to or set out to do it, because we talk about it a lot here, but we only have our own compost pile to work with, don't we? So I want to know, I know that, Lisa, you helped to break up a sex trafficking ring when you were in high school by going undercover. And it's also a storyline you gave your protagonist, Jules, in Woman on Fire. Can you tell us a little bit about that and writing that part of yourself into the book?
No, absolutely. So interestingly, Jules, even though she's 24 years old, is the character who is most like me. I have, of all my characters, this Jules Roth is the most like me. And when I was in high school, I had an internship for a state senator, and I was approached by the police if I would be willing to go, and they would protect me from behind the scenes as bait to break up a sex trafficking ring. And I was, hell yes, I am in. And so I was utilized in that way, and we did break up a sex trafficking ring, and people were arrested. And so that really gave me the journalistic buzz. And I knew that I needed to go forward and seek out the truth, and, all those kinds of things that really impacted a 17-year-old. And so I wanted to give that story to Jules. And it's embellished a little bit in the book, but it's really pretty identical to what happened to me, in my younger days.
That was incredible.
I always think it's fascinating to kind of look at, can I pick something, especially if I know the author really well, can I pick out something even they don't see in the book, right? And just like this little nugget of their life. Yes. So I think that's fascinating. And Erika, you write about women who are tremendously resilient, including, of course, Virginia and Violet, but also, of course, American-born Virginia Hall, whom the Germans called the most dangerous of all Allied spies. I have a feeling they'd never call me that, but she had lost her leg in a hunting accident and parachuted into France with a wooden leg. You mentioned this earlier, called Cuthbert. I mean, where did that come from? So can you talk about the piece of your own past that taught you the most about resilience, especially against physical challenges like the one Virginia faces in The Invisible Woman?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I don't even know where it comes from until I get to the end of the book and I say, oh, okay, there's where that is. But
Yeah.
Virginia Hall, so my mother died in 2015, and she was so incredibly strong. She had a very debilitating form of scoliosis her whole life. And I'm not talking about a little curvature. She had a 90-degree S curve, ribs fused. Her whole life, she couldn't really breathe. And so I always saw her saying, oh, well, we're going to go to this choral program. So we need to park here, and then I need to wait, and then I'll walk this far, and then I need to take a rest. Or I want to go to this, but I need to figure out what to wear to hide something. I was watching her work her body and what it could do and couldn't do around planning life all the time. So my understanding of how Virginia Hall had to do that with Cuthbert was, I knew exactly what that was like. Having watched it. Also, stubborn determination. You know, my mom, when she was born, the doctor said she's not going to live to be 10 years old. She did. And then the doctor said she would never have children, and she had 2. And then they said, you won't live past 50, and she made it to 62. So, you know, it's like, she was just always defying the odds. And Virginia Hall was the same. They said, we're not taking women in foreign service. She said, all right, well, I'll go be secretary at this embassy for now, but just you wait. And then they said, oh, now you've shot off your foot by accident. You have a prosthetic leg. We're not taking women in foreign service. And so the French said, you want to drive an ambulance? Go for it. And then the British said, do you want to spy for us? Okay. So just watching that, not letting people say no. I always watched it. You know, I don't have that level of fortitude. I have people in my life who do, and I'm really dazzled by them, you know, so.
Oh, that's amazing.
Wow.
That is amazing. Well, and also I think what's really cool about both of these books is you both have these really interesting post-publication stories related to your books that I wanted to touch on just really briefly. So Erika, you know, you have written about this American-born World War II spy, and you became very involved in an effort to have Virginia awarded a posthumous Medal of Honor, which is so cool. So can you talk a bit about that effort and what it means to try to bring someone such an honor in real life after bringing her to life on a page?
Yeah, I'd love to. I got involved in the women in intelligence community from these books.
Awesome.
I've been doing different, and I'm so honored. And I've been doing lots of presentations to different, you know, the women of Tampa Bay, Greater Defense, all different intelligence agencies. So I've been hooked up with a lot of really cool people, and they are so taken with Virginia Hall and want her story to grow, and also the women in Sisters of Night and Fog and honoring them and their memories. So particularly Virginia Hall is the only civilian woman to win the Distinguished Service Cross, and they want to get that upgraded to a Medal of Honor. So I've been working with the Amazing Women of the Intelligence Community, which is a interagency, bipartisan, huge organization of incredible people. Also with another writer who wrote about Virginia Hall, Craig Growley, and Virginia Hall's family, who I'm in touch with because they live in Baltimore.
Awesome.
So we put together letters. We're trying to document field experience. We need specific combat duty. And that's all been this monumental effort. And we have to get support from Senators Warner and Rubio, which we have people in both of the offices who are really working hard on this. And then it would go to the Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Obviously, all these people are very busy right now, but we're really hoping and praying that Virginia gets this honor.
And Virginia was from she was from that area, right?
Virginia Hall is from Baltimore.
That's
Virginia, Albert Lake is in Florida. Yeah.
It is funny that, sorry. I was just going to say, it's funny that you wound up writing about 2 Virginias back to back. Did that ever confuse you in the writing or the research?
They could not have been more different from each other. There was no confusion. So
yeah.
That's very, very cool. Okay. Lisa, your book has some really exciting news, and that Sharon Stone is planning to both produce and star in a screen adaptation of Woman on Fire, which is so cool. So can you tell us a little bit about how that came about and where it stands? And I mean, have you talked to Sharon?
We're so excited.
You know, so first of all, yes, I've spoken to her quite frequently. She is lovely. I mean, she is kind, she is generous, she is lovely. It's it just blows my mind every time. My husband will say something, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm texting with Sharon. You know,
I can't make dinner. Sharon and I are chatting.
Yeah. So, so this you'll appreciate this story. It's an out of the box story. So I had just read her memoir, which is called The Beauty of Living Twice, and the paperback weirdly came out, Erica, on March 1st. Everything was March 1st.
Yeah.
So I had read this memoir and I was blown away. I mean, the whole behind the scenes of Hollywood. She has been through so much, fought through so many things, the Me Too stuff, all of it, and such an icon and just, a survivor. And I just really connected to this book. At the same time, Kristen wrote a blurb for my book, and I brought it because I had a book launch. The blurb is on the cookie. So the last part of the blurb is she described Woman on Fire as woman in gold meets spotlight meets basic instinct. So this was really at the exact same time. And I said to myself, this is a sign. So if you can believe this, I sent my little arc. I did my investigative journalistics, moves, and I found where her business office was, and I just sent it out with a note, and that was it. And so my husband and I are watching Netflix, and I get a text, and the text was, "Hi, it's Sharon Stone." And she said, "I'm in X." And she said, "I'm reading your book. I absolutely love it. Has anyone optioned it?" And I'm thinking, optioned it? It's an arc. It's a nothing. It has, it's not even, a book yet. And I was so excited. Maybe I got on my couch. Maybe I did a Tarzan scream. But I was so excited. And so from there, it all moved really quickly, and we signed a contract together, right before Christmas. So I was literally holding this news for the past 2 months.
Wow.
And then just during the week of my book launch, the plane landed, and my husband and I were separated with the dog. Too much information, but I opened it up, and I guess it was announced in Deadline, and all my writer friends, everyone just exploded. And I was, burst out crying. The whole plane was in on it. And literally tears, and the woman next to me, I'm like, "Jessica, you don't understand." And then mascara all over her shirt. And so where it stands, it's all moving. And, what I love, and just briefly, is that so many women in Hollywood are taking the reins. They're no longer just, acting in movies. They want to produce, they want to direct, they want the production houses. And I love that. And so she's one of them, and she's, going to make all of this happen. And I just, it's a pinch me moment, and I'm super excited. But, she is the original Woman on Fire.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's the story.
And you totally went rogue doing it that way, by the way.
Out of the box. And I'm a big believer in go out of the box, as no matter who your publishing house is or what PR you have behind you, you still got to make it happen on your own and hustle. So,
my first book, it never got made, but it got optioned because I did the same thing. Like, there was somebody that I thought would be, and I sent her the book, and she optioned it before the book had even come out.
Exactly.
It was crazy. Yeah.
That is so cool. I can't believe, though, that you just mailed it to Sharon Stone, and then Sharon Stone texted you the
only celebrity. Yeah, the only celebrity. I kind of felt it. I had this this weird kinetic vibe that this was the person, and it just happens.
And she's so perfect for it, for the story. As soon as I heard it, I was like, yes.
Yeah, thank you. It's crazy, but
and I feel that way because I put it in the blurb. So I think she's perfect for the story.
It's in the cookie.
The cookie says on the cookie.
I love that.
All right, that's amazing. So, ladies, one of the things that I think really appeals to people about historical fiction is that we often learn to move forward by looking back. So, Lisa, of course, your novel is mostly set in the modern day with some historical context, but the conflict at the heart of this story is firmly rooted in World War II, as was your first book, I think, Fugitive Colors, right?
Yes, yes.
And Erika, you've written several books about World War II and other moments in the early 20th century. So I'd love to talk to you both a bit about why writing about the past matters. In other words, why does the past feel so relevant today? And what can we learn from it? What do you think, Erika?
Well, and there's twofold. I mean, first, there really is nothing new under the sun. The cycle that humanity likes to run on seems to repeat itself. We just have constant up-to-date access to the news, but it's all been going on forever, exhausting. So, but for me, a couple weeks ago, I was trying to struggle how to make why we need these stories of hope in dark times more relevant. And unfortunately, I don't have to reach too far. But we do. We need to see people who are willing to risk absolutely everything in the name of good and to fight for good, sometimes costing the ultimate cost to do so. And not only does it inspire us to rise to the occasion, but also for me, it helped put my life in perspective. Again, I was writing this throughout COVID, and every time I'd be tempted to feel just a teeny bit sorry for myself because my pasta wasn't at the store or whatever, then I would really dig into the research and say, no, you've got it quite good. Everything's going to be okay. And it can get much worse. So
Yeah, that's such a good point. So, Lisa, what do you think? Certainly your novel shows in a crystal clear way that the influence of the past continues to reverberate. I mean, that's really, that echoes throughout your entire novel, I think. What do you think that means in the context of the present?
Well, I'm coming from it. I'm a daughter of a Holocaust survivor. So I had that growing up, and my grandmother was hands down my best friend. And she, her whole family perished in the Holocaust and in Auschwitz. And her thing was her legacy, her family, the joy, the going forward. But she really taught me about the fight and to stand up for, especially now there's so much rampant anti-Semitism. It's really important to stand up. But I got involved in my first book, as you mentioned, really researching stolen art. So I researched that book for 4 years before I would allow myself pen to paper. With the Holocaust, you have to get it right. And being a journalist, sometimes a blessing and a curse, there's no stone left unturned. So during COVID, the same, I wanted to come back to a story about stolen art, but from the perspective of one painting, but a painting representing the 650,000 works of art that were looted or confiscated or stolen, not just from Jewish collections, but from museums and schools and galleries, and really the backstory of how artists, especially the avant-garde, was persecuted in Nazi Germany. And I don't know why I'm not an artist. My middle daughter is actually, but I'm always gravitating to this, segment of, World War II. And, I keep following it. I keep studying it. And, once we get in on a book and we're doing research, we're kind of quasi-experts. So this part of history, crazily, is still front page news. If you've seen it in the New York Times almost every week. And now that the Nazis and the survivors are pretty much dwindling, this is what's left of Holocaust history. And so I'm just fascinated, I'm engrossed, I'm embedded in this aspect of history.
That absolutely makes sense.
Well, that segues so beautifully into my next question, which is, you do both have these beautiful novels centered around this particular time period. And I'm wondering, it's kind of like when you've just had a baby and you're like bringing it home from the hospital and people are like, when are you having your next baby? Do we have any thoughts? Is there anything you can tell us about next books? And do you think that you'll stay in this, specific space or are you not sure yet? So big question there. Erika, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of move into a space that wasn't so emotionally devastating in some ways, because some of the research can be really eye-opening in terrible ways. And what I've been drawn to, I was starting out researching this haunted apartment in London where Mama Cass had died and different people had died. And so I was studying the occult and drug use, and that was what I was absorbed in. And finally, I realized this was during COVID, and I said, I can't spend all my time focusing on this stuff. So I put that aside and I started to look for things that were beautiful and true and interesting. And I became captivated by kind of a controversial artifact that I will not yet name, but also captivated by the storytelling of like a multi-generational family saga. How, what you don't work out, what you don't act out, you work out. Your Rosamund Pilcher, The Shell Seekers, Winter Solstice, just watching families move over the years. And so what has grown from it is this multi-generational family saga centered around really dazzling settings, artifacts, food, very sensory experience. So something I really want to immerse myself in. And hopefully readers will too.
Yeah, for sure. Lisa, what about you? Do you know yet?
So, yes, I do. So I had my big departure from World War II with The Unbreakables, which was very sexy women's fiction. And I whipped that one out in 9 months. Just
like a baby.
Just like a baby. It was very fun to write. I loved being in the south of France, and I took my family there for research, and it was wonderful. But every time I try to walk away, and World War II pulls me back in. So this new book is about an actress. I love the arts, and she's an actress with a secret past that took place during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. So that's what I'm working on, and I'm fascinated by that. That period of World War II and that particular period. So, she was an assassin in her past, and now she is a very famous actress that no one would have any clue about her past because it's all been fabricated. And now she's at a point where she's going to reveal the story. So that's what I'm reading.
Oh my gosh, they both sound so good.
That sounds so good.
And I have to say, I know the thing that Erica's writing about. I'm just telling you, and it's going to be amazing.
I really want to know.
Really suspense build. This is great.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And Lisa, that sounds amazing too. I'm so excited.
We're gonna get it out of her.
Yeah.
No,
Erica,
you guys,
won't get it out of here.
I'm a vault. Nope. I'm a vault. It's not coming out.
We have to meet in person with flies in it. Yeah.
We did like a pinky swear and everything.
There's champagne involved. We might get it out of her.
But that is a distinct possibility.
Yeah.
Distinct possibility. But no, lips are sealed. But Lisa and Erica. Ladies, we love a writing tip on here. That's one of our favorite parts of the show. I think a lot of our viewers are interested in it, but we always feel like we learn something every week too, because I think each of us does this completely differently. And we would love to hear what your piece of wisdom is for both aspiring writers and established career writers, because we're always taking mental notes too. So Erica, would you like to start off tonight by giving us a writing tip?
Yeah, and I'm going to steal mine right from Ernest Hemingway, because everything I know, and that is leave when the scene gets good. So when the action starts to rise and open the door and they're standing there with a gun, walk away. You're done for the day. So you pick it right back up the next day, rather than writing to a chapter end and then sitting down and being like, oh my gosh, what happens next? So.
Okay, that's awesome. That's a great tip. And how about you, Lisa? I love that.
Okay, so I've got two. I would say my secret weapon is my dog, Izzy. So what I do before I turn in the manuscript is I read the entire manuscript aloud to Izzy, who doesn't move. And I think it's so important because the book is so different when you hear it aloud. You can hear words that you said 20 pages earlier, that was kind of a distinguished word that you might have said 20 pages earlier. You can also hear description that goes on and on. You're like, oh my God, I'm bored with this. How could, a reader enjoy it? So read the book aloud. I know it's a lot of work, but it really makes a difference. And the other tip I would say is, and this is definitely from my reporter training, if you're going to do interviews, I interviewed after the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin. I interviewed his widow, Leah Rabin, right after the assassination for Vogue magazine. So what happened was I had my really amazing high-tech, state-of-the-art tape recorder, and it picked up the air condition. And then I also had my crappy little Magnavox from high school recorder, and that saved the day. So back up the backup.
Wow.
I have to say, always back
Wow.
up.
That is great advice. And Lisa, I have to say that would have been good advice for me. I used to write for People magazine, and years ago I interviewed John Corbett, who was Aiden on Sex and the City.
Yes.
And we had the greatest, just frankest interview. He was wearing like a big Mexican hat for some reason, and he was just dishing on everything. And I had taken some notes, but I was just so enthralled because it was Aiden, that I got home and pushed play, eagerly waiting to hear the replay of the interview, and it was completely blank. So, and I had not taken enough notes to carry me through. And so I had to do one of the most humiliating things I've ever done, which was to call his publicity people and say, I have a blank interview tape. I need to do it again. And they were like, okay. And the second time he wasn't nearly as forthcoming. So lesson learned. And I've always taken, that was years ago. I've always taken really copious notes since then. But yes, I learned that lesson the same way, Lisa.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Well, ladies, this is one of our favorite parts of the show too. Do you have a book recommendation that you want to share with us this evening? Or better yet, a book that we would be surprised to find on your shelves? Lisa, do you want to take that one first?
Okay. So, I always, whenever I'm asked for a recommendation, I have so many wonderful friends in the industry. So I really kind of veer toward what has been on my nightstand pretty much forever. So, I would say the book that hasn't moved off my nightstand is Fear of Flying by Erika Zhang. It was the book I snuck off my parents' shelf at, 10 years old, way, way too young for it. But it really taught me a lot about writing as a woman, and you can go there. So Erika Zhang's Fear of Flying, I'll say.
Very cool. What about you, Erika?
Well, I just finished last week Kristen Harmel's Forest of Vanishing Stars, and I did finish it on the airplane home, which was a little turbulent, and I didn't even care because I was completely obsessed with Yoda. I absolutely loved it. So that hit it out of the park.
It's a good thing I met with her last week and paid her to say that, right? She just pulled that
She
off
did.
like it was reality. I know.
You say no, it was just amazing. One I think people be surprised about is I mostly read historical and biography and memoir, but every once in a while I like to mix it up. And I read The Hating Game, which is like the very sexy romantic comedy. And that book made me laugh out loud in an ugly way. And so I haven't read anything like that before since. But that was a really fun one. So it definitely takes you out of the present in different ways than historical fiction.
That's great.
Absolutely.
I love that.
All right. Well, Lisa and Erika, if you would not mind sticking around for a few more minutes, we have one additional question for you. But first, a few reminders from us. Oh, Mary Kay, you're muted.
Well, Sean muted me. Okay, now I can talk. You may not mute me. I will be heard. Okay, we know a lot of you have been participating in our very first Friends in Fiction Reading Challenge this month. We're encouraging you to read a book about a female historical figure, and actually, Erika's new book would fit the bill perfectly.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a new way to keep track of these books and your other reading, we would love to recommend this beautiful reading journal designed by us in conjunction with Oxford Exchange, one of our favorite independent bookstores in Tampa. It has a gorgeous Friends in Fiction blue linen cover and plenty of space to record your thoughts on what you're reading. Plus, the pages aren't dated, so you can begin anytime and continue filling it for as long as you like, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it is March Madness. Not just for Auburn in basketball.
Or
and not just for UNC. Exactly. But it's March Madness on our podcast. And we are so excited about this month. There have been so many good things going on.
Yeah.
So on the last episode, Ron and Christy talked to Craig Conover about pillow talk.
Oh my God,
And
it was so good.
So good.
Listen,
So good.
he like really dishes in that episode. Okay, go ahead.
No, he does. And he it's almost like he doesn't realize it's going to be listened to by thousands of people.
Right. It's like
just like having this
we're just
conversation.
hanging out.
Yeah. Like he's just like chatting with y'all, like forgetting that he's going to be heard by thousands. So don't forget to subscribe. And then this coming week, Ron is talking to Brad Meltzer. And we are so excited about this. His new one is called The Lightning Rod. And Mary Kay and Ron talked to Harlan Coben. And that is the week after for our Mad March Madness. And then last, but definitely not least, in our wild March Madness is our Christy Woodson Harvey with some very exclusive cut from the book and super secrets that you won't find anywhere else. So don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And remember to, while you're at the subscribe hitting stage of your day, subscribe to our YouTube channel and our newsletter and Loco Plus so that you can see all of our back streaming shows. Now at 113 of them or something like that.
It's crazy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
And just keep on hitting like and make sure that you join us in our Friends in Fiction official book club, which is run by our friends Lisa Harrison and Brenda Gardner. You can be there with 11,000 of your closest friends. And on March 21st, they'll be discussing The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, which I know a lot of you have already read and loved. So sign up there if you haven't already, and make sure to join us for our next episode of Friends in Fiction next Wednesday, right here at 7 p.m., where we will welcome John Searles and Jessica Strasser will join us for the after show. Then on March 23rd, we'll host Lisa Scottolini. If you're ever wondering about our schedule, it's always on the Friends in Fiction website and on the header graphic on our Facebook page.
Now, Lisa and Erica, one more time, you're up. One question we always love to ask: what were the values around reading and writing when you were growing up? And Lisa, why don't you take this first?
Well, it's in my first grade essay that I said, they asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to write books. So I feel like I've been so blessed to have teachers that nurtured my love of writing. And, I did a lot of poetry and they really encouraged that. So that has been my tunnel vision all the way through. I mean, the diaries, all the journals later on. And I feel like it's a huge part of my life, the writing, the reading, and, it's breathing for me. So it's who I am. So those are my values.
That's awesome.
Erica.
Awesome.
Yes, I remember the Scholastic book fairs at school were always my favorite days, coming home with arms full of things. And my dad had an air freight business. And one day he brought me a book when I was about 7 years old with the cover ripped off, which now I sadly know meant it was being shipped back to the publisher. And it was James and the Giant Peach by Roald Dahl. And that became the first book I felt like it found me. I'm very spooky about that. And on we went. And my grandmother, my Irish grandma, used to give me the books that I was not supposed to be reading, like V.C. Andrews and Stephen King. I'm like 11. Read them in my little Catholic school class and get in trouble for them. And it's always been a whole thing. And then my dad used to tell me scary stories on the way to school. And when my brother, he's 7 years younger than I am, would be too scared. So I started reading aloud to the car. So my dad always says I was an audiobook narrator for
That's awesome.
just on the way to school. So it's just always been reading, writing all the time.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's awesome. It's always so interesting to hear the different influences that go into making writers what they are. And we are very happy, Lisa and Erika, that you were made into the writers you are, because we loved both of these books. We're so excited for people out there to read them. They're Woman on Fire by Lisa Barr, Sisters of Night and Fog by Erika Robuck. Erika, Lisa, thank you so much for being with us tonight. We loved spending time with you.
Thank you so much. Awesome.
Yeah, I loved it. So good night, ladies.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
Now, to all of you out there, make sure to stay for our after show with Rachel McMillan. And don't forget that you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube, which if you missed the beginning of tonight's episode, there was a little bit of a Facebook glitch. We know a few of you weren't able to get on. If you're watching now and you missed the beginning, you'll be able to watch it on YouTube, or you'll be able to watch it on Facebook. So you can find it in either place. We are live on YouTube every week, just like we are here on Facebook. And if you subscribe, you won't miss a thing. Plus, you'll have access to special short clips. Be sure to come back next week, same time, same place, as we welcome John Searles and Jessica Strasser. And we will see you in just a minute on the after show with Rachel McMillan.
Yay.
Go
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the after show. We didn't even give you time to go get another glass of wine because you are not going to want to miss us talking to Rachel. But first, gosh, they are so interesting, Lisa and Erika, and the rip from the headlines and the real women and bringing them to life. It's amazing.
It is, as is just mailing Sharon Stone your book. I can't get over that. I'm like, you can do that? I'm mailing Sharon Stone my book. No, I'm just kidding. But that's amazing.
No, but I was sitting there thinking, who am I going to mail it to? Who am I going to mail it to? Who am I going to mail it to?
I'm impressed. Good for her, though, for having the initiative to do that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm interested in how many former journalists we have had on the show who became novelists.
Yeah.
It's as a washed up journalist myself, that's something I'm always fascinated with.
You are rather washed up. We talk about it a lot.
That's what we
We're
say
like,
all the time
God,
about
will that
you.
woman ever get her career off the ground? It's sad.
I tell people I'm a recovering journalist.
Will she ever figure out what to do with her life?
I mean, it's time.
Okay,
It's
we
better.
are really excited to bring on a third incredible author tonight who
Lucky
also
us.
happens to be a good friend of ours. And I know we are all fans of her and her work. And we've been waiting for this. And before we bring her on, I have to tell you this. I've known about this book for so long, and I cannot tell you how excited I am that it is finally coming out.
Yay.
So excited. Well, Rachel McMillan is the author of the Herringford and Watts mysteries, the Van Buren and DeLuca mysteries, the 3/4 Time series, the London Restoration, and the Mozart Code. She is also the author of several nonfiction works, including A Very Merry Holiday Movie Guide, and To Be Sure She Doesn't Sleep, right? That's a lot.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Right, I know.
She can't sleep. I think she
If
lives
you
in
watch
Canada.
her on social media,
She lives in Canada, so I think they give her an extra hour because she lives in Canada where it's cold. I don't know. That's my theory. We'll ask her. Okay. When she's not reading or writing, Rachel works as a literary agent for William K. Jensen Literary Agency. She loves church,
She's amazing.
architectural history, and is a classic movie buff and an avid traveler. We're going to ask her what her favorite classic movie is.
Ooh, I love it. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Rachel hails from a small town in Ontario set on a lake, and she now lives in Toronto. So, Sean, I'm going to ask you to bring Rachel on, but I also see Erika is still sitting backstage, and I know she likes Rachel too. So maybe bring them both on. Erika can come back on
Bring
as
her
well.
on.
Hi, Rachel.
Oh my gosh, hello. Hi, Erika.
Hi, Rachel, my friend.
Like a
Hi,
stalker.
everybody.
Like
Oh, Lisa. Lisa's still here too. Lisa, would you also like to come back?
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's like a sleepover.
Guys,
It's like a
guys.
Rachel's here.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, Rachel. It is
Hi, Patty.
so great to see you. Hello, my friend. We are so excited about the Mozart Code, which comes out next Tuesday. Next Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Like I didn't think it would ever,
Yes!
ever
That
come out.
cover, Rachel. That cover is magic.
Isn't it?
And
stunning?
everybody just
Yes.
has to admire how Rachel says, "Oh my gosh."
Oh,
So
yeah.
I want you to start by
Sometimes-
telling
Anything you want me to say in my Canadian accent, please let me know. I'll oblige. It happens.
That's awesome. All right. I want you to tell us a little bit about the book before we ask you to get into some
Yeah.
conversation. Tell us about the Mozart Code.
Oh, I love it. It is a treatise on chess and Mozart, and it features two cities very dear to me, Vienna and Prague. My last pandemic trip actually was specifically to research this book, and I hope that those cities become a stand-in for a symphony to readers. It is set in the Kulturkrieg, the Cold War. One of the two cities will fall behind the Iron Curtain, one will not. It's a marriage of convenience story between two people who were just at Bletchley Park during the war and could be the tipping point, along with Mozart and his death mask, as to what will be the next step that will take the Cold War to its, as we know, this espionage intelligent pandemonium that happened. So it's music and love and all of the different ways that we have to learn how to live with ourselves, but all of the different ways also that we have to learn how to love one another. So it's a romance with an espionage flair and set in two magnificent cities that I hope people love reading about.
Awesome.
I want to know how you knew about the death mask. I've never heard of that, and it's so fascinating. Tell everybody about it. real quick.
So a long time ago, I
Yeah.
don't know about you guys, but as an author, I have an ideas folder and I'm always adding to it. And so a long time ago, I read that I'm a classical music buff, that the death mask of Mozart supposedly turned up in a fan house or a pawn shop in Vienna in 1947. And so I filed that away. Like, what the heck? The war, as we know from Lisa's book, as we know from Erika's amazing backdrop, was quite harrowing, but also exhumed these amazing artifacts. And the restitution and reparation of artifacts to their original parties was quite amazing. And so the fact that the death mask, supposedly, I've talked to Viennese historians that kind of dispute this. Some believe it is the real thing, some do not. The fact that it turned up after the war was just amazing to me. And I was waiting for a story. And so when I was writing the London restoration, which is set in post-war London and features all of the reconstruction of Christopher Wren's beautiful churches, I created an MI6 character for that book, and he kind of spoke to me and said, Rachel, I need my own story. And so when I had his story, I thought, what a wonderful time to really dig deep into this city that is an absolute passion and muse for me. And luckily, unfortunately, the Death Mask of Mozart informs some of that passion, because Vienna is a city that is alive with music. You can't turn a street corner without hearing Mozart. And it's inherent in the architecture, and it's inherent in Prague's architecture, and I just loved it. So if you want to geek out with me about that, then have I got a book for you?
I love it. I love that.
I'm
That's so
such
great.
a nerd.
That's so awesome.
I love it.
Well, you obviously, it's like you knew what I was going to ask and you just segued right into it. I love when that happens. But you obviously, as you've said, are very passionate about Vienna and you really love it. So can you tell us a little bit about like what draws you to Vienna?
It is a book from, I'm a pastor's kid. I grew up in the church, and we had a church library, and there was a Christian fiction novel called Vienna Prelude that is about a violinist who decides to, along with American journalists, smuggle passports for Jewish children out of Vienna before the Anschluss and the occupation. I read it when I was 10 years old, and it informed all of my great loves of my life. It made me passionate about history. It made me passionate about classical music. And while other children were fascinated with living in Narnia and Avonlea and Middle Earth, all I ever wanted to do was go to Vienna. So now in adulthood, I've spent time there, and it just shows the power of a story that perhaps isn't quote unquote great literature or a timeless classic to everyone who would, Wikipedia, what are the 10 greatest classics ever? It's not that book. But when you're a kid, anything that informs that passion is something that makes it a classic to you. So it informed everything that I love. And I always loved Vienna.
I love that.
It's a true love of my life.
That is amazing. Erica, did you have a question you wanted to ask Rachel?
I did. Rachel is somebody who I feel like I know from seeing on Twitter or different social media, but I wanted to ask you as a writer, how do you balance it all? Because you write, you're a cheerleader for other writers, tremendous. And then you also have chats and you have so many things. So how do you organize your day? How do you do it?
Look at that.
It is a lot of necessity, Erica. I used to be a little bit shy about talking about this, but now I've decided just to own it because I think it's really helpful for aspiring writers. I am a single woman. So writing is, if I want it to be my livelihood, I have to do a patchwork quilt of other things in order to assure that I am secure enough. Because we all know that writing can have one success one moment and then no successes the next moment.
Absolutely.
Where is my retirement fund if Anthony Bridgerton doesn't come from the Regency period and propose to me tomorrow?
But he's going to. We're putting that out there. We are manifesting that right
Aren't you
now.
waiting for Sean Evans?
I'm waiting
You're
for
waiting
Sean
for Sean,
Evans
aren't
too.
you?
It's just the Bridgerton trailer today. I've just been quite fascinated by that for research purposes as an agent. But I think it's a lot about, I work for the privilege of writing. And so when you are working towards something that is your passion, you make time for it. So I chunk out my days. I do have to say that if I'm not passionate about other people's books and not reading, I don't have the battery power to write my own. I will also say that the pandemic just made this a big whole blur. So I'm talking about usual Rachel, not pandemic lockdown Rachel. But somehow living in the world of story is how I'm able to craft my own. And so in the morning is when I do all of my agent emails and when I do all of my administrative stuff and any, course I'm teaching or anything I'm doing as an editing job for freelance. And then I shift to my own stories. And I've always told myself, if I ever stop loving other people's books, I'll stop writing my own, because I have to be a reader first and then a writer second. So but I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's for anyone, or everyone, but if you really love something as much as I love the world of words, then somehow you're willing to give up a lot to make it happen.
Yeah, that's such a good point.
You posted on Twitter today your schedule.
I got it all done too.
There is no way. I saw your to-do list on Twitter when I was on the airplane, and I had to close my computer and close my eyes. Like,
Patty was gonna write, and you broke her, Rachel. You broke
Patty. I watched a movie because your to-do list was like something I would do in 2 weeks.
I'm gonna need to search this out.
It's a little crazy, but I really do feel that it's important. I'm sure we all do, because we're very active on social media, to let people know that if you want to be in this world, it is going to take some sacrifice. I know no writer who wakes up and is an overnight success. We see this in the careers of every writer who's here. if you want it, and I legit think I said this on the last time I was on Friends in Fiction almost 2 years ago, you have to really, really love it. And since you really, really love it, everything you do just means that much more.
Yeah.
That's so true. And Rachel, Erika mentioned feeling like she knows you because she's, you're on social media a lot and you're very open about things on social media. And so before we go tonight, I wanted to ask you about that. So you, of course, live in Canada where the lockdowns were much stricter.
Yeah.
And you've been really authentic and vulnerable online about being careful with your mental health and careful about what isolation and COVID and being away from your loved ones has meant to you. You've been really open about that. Can you talk to us a little bit about that and how maybe that experience has enriched your writing of this novel?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm very open. This should shock no one that I'm a lifetime sufferer of panic and anxiety. I wrote them into a character in my Buren and DeLuca series. Hamish has all of my symptoms, my tremor, my stutter when I get very panicked. And so lockdown, Toronto was one of the most locked down cities in the world over the past 2 years, often to the point where as a single woman, I could not see another household. So I went a long time without even seeing my parents or my siblings or my friends. And so that actually really influenced my approach, there it is, of the Mozart Code, because I found that the story was getting very, very dark. And so it took extra edits. The release date was moved, which of course I internalized as, you're terrible at this. But once I embraced the struggle, it allowed me to create a character who mirrors so much of my own insecurities. So we're looking at Simon Barrington, who is the illegitimate son of a very wealthy family. To anyone who meets him, he's pinstripes and spit Sean shoes and Savile Row. He's an amazing chess master. But all of his life is all about trying to reconcile, how can I believe in myself? Everyone sees one thing. How do I believe that I am worth something? And I think that my experience during the pandemic allowed me to get into the loud voices, because you're on your own. You can't go work at a coffee shop or see people that Simon has all of the time. So if readers come away with something that's not just a spy and love story, it's you're worth something inherently just because you're you. And no matter how loud that echo gets, you are valuable because you're you. And I think that everyone's worthy of love, and the words that encapsulate that are what became the Mozart Code in its very final form.
Well, I cannot think of a better note to end on tonight. That was absolutely beautiful. So well said. And I mean, apologies to all of you out there, because we've given you clearly 3 books tonight. You're going to have to immediately go out and buy. So apologies to all of your wallets.
Pretty cold and rainy. I think we've given them something fun to do.
You guys, everybody out there, you're going to rip through these books, all 3 of them in a week. So, pick up all of them now. Pre-order Rachel's, which will be out is it next Tuesday, Rachel?
Next Tuesday, yeah.
Next Tuesday. And Lisa's and Erika's just came out this past week. So place Rachel's on pre-order so it arrives on Tuesday. By that point, you will have flown through Woman on Fire and Sisters of Night and Fog. But ladies, we appreciate so much that you joined us tonight. We love all 3 of you. We're so happy that you're here. And Erika and Lisa, thank you so much for staying for the after show. Also.
Yay!
Y'all are awesome.
Rachel,
I wish
Lisa,
they were
Erika.
all in one room.
I know.
Energy. I know. Roof. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, ladies, what a lovely night. We will let all of you out there go, but we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Have a wonderful Wednesday night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, y'all.